The movie kicks off in Mexico City during the vibrant Day of the Dead celebration. A guy dressed in a white suit and a skull mask strolls through the crowd, while another man, who is standing there in a skull outfit, notices him and heads into a hotel with a woman. This couple goes to their room for some private time. Inside the room, the man takes out his mask and we learn that he is actually James Bond, also known as 00. He tells the girl to stay there while he steps out onto the rooftop, where he walks with his gun, aiming at the man in white, standing in another building, who is named Marco Chiara. Bond overhears Chiara chatting with two other men about a plan to blow up a stadium and asking about someone called the Pale King. Just as Bond is about to take action, the men see him and start shooting. But Bond quickly takes them out before detonating a bomb that causes part of the building to collapse onto his rooftop. He tumbles through the debris, but manages to get up and heads into the city to look for Chiara. Meanwhile, Chiara is walking outside from the destroyed building when James notices him. Chiara takes off through the crowd with James hot on his heels, chasing him relentlessly. Bond tracks his target during the parade while Chiara is calling for someone to join him in the square. Chiara hops into a helicopter that is descending, and Bond quickly catches up, taking down Chiara's henchman before leaping into the helicopter with him. As the helicopter lifts off, Bond engages in a fierce fight with both Chiara and the pilot. The helicopter swoops dangerously close to the crowd below as Bond tries to eliminate Chiara. He is fighting with Chiara when he notices a ring on Chiara's hand, which he takes it. Then the pilot tries to shoot James, but he manages to knock him out, which causes the helicopter flies reverse. In a thrilling moment, he manages to kick Chiara out of the helicopter and then tosses the pilot out as well. Taking charge of the helicopter, Bond flies it away and examines a ring he took from Chiara's finger, which has an octopus symbol on it. After this, we see him, who is Superior Officer of Intelligence Service. He is really upset about the trouble Bond has caused, particularly because he wasn't supposed to be in Mexico in the first place. Bond tries to explain that he was just on a long overdue vacation and that running into Chiara was purely by chance. However, M isn't having any of it and decides to officially suspend Bond. As Bond is walking out, he meets the new leader of the Joint Intelligence Service, JIS, Max Denby. He congratulates Max for his appointment and starts calling him C. That evening, Bond is resting in his room when the agent, Moneypenny, comes to meet him. Bond reveals the true motive behind his pursuit of Chiara. He explains that shortly after the previous M passed away, he received a tape with orders to track down Chiara, eliminate him, and attend the funeral in Rome. Moneypenny then hands Bond a box filled with items that were found at Skyfall. As Bond rummages through the box, he discovers various things, including a photo of a man and a boy, but the face of a third person has been burned away. The next day, Bond takes a ride along the river with Bill Tanner, and during their trip, they spot the new Joint Intelligence Service building. Tanner explains that C has a plan to launch something called 9 Eyes, which will let them tap into intelligence from 9 different countries, while also shutting down the 00 program. Later, they meet Q, who hands Bond a watch, mentioning that the alarm on it is really loud. In a twist, Bond ends up taking a special Aston Martin that was designed for 009. Bond gets to Rome to attend Chiara's funeral, where he meets Chiara's wife, Lucia. Later that night, while she's at home, 2 guys sneak into her home to kill her, but Bond arrives just in time to stop them. Even though Lucia knows Bond was the one who killed her husband, he charms her and finds out about a crime group that Chiara was involved with. Bond makes his way to the secret hideout of the organization by using an octopus ring to get in. Once inside, he finds a big group of people talking about what's happening in Marrakesh and Tunisia, along with a plan for a bombing in Mexico. Suddenly, a mysterious man shrouded in darkness walks in to oversee the meeting. They discuss a figure known as the Pale King and their intentions to eliminate him. The shadowy man calls for someone to be the muscle for their scheme, but a much bigger guy named Mr. Hinks steps up instead. Hinks brutally slams the first man's head onto the table and crushes it until he dies, casually wiping the blood off his fingers with a handkerchief afterward. The man in the shadows then spots Bond and greets him by name, mentioning that it's been a long time. Bond seems to recognize him too. Just then, one of the henchmen tries to attack Bond, but he quickly throws him over the balcony. As Bond makes his escape, Hinks chases after him. Bond hops into a car that has very few gadgets working, except for a flamethrower, which he uses to attack Hinks's vehicle. Afterward, Bond calls out to Moneypenny to gather information about the Pale King and the mysterious Franz Oberhauser, the man in shadows, while Hinks is chasing in the car. Moneypenny tells Bond that the Pale King is actually Mr. White, and she discovers that Oberhauser and his dad were said to have died in an avalanche. He hangs up the call and injects himself out of the car, ending chase. Bond then tracks down White in Austria, where he finds him living alone in a rundown house and suffering from thallium poisoning because he left the organization. Bond persuades White to reveal where his daughter is, promising to keep her safe, and he gives White a gun, knowing he might want to end his pain. White directs Bond to a clinic where his daughter works, saying she will help him find l'Americaine, which will lead him back to Oberhauser. After giving Bond this information, White takes the gun and ends his own life. Bond meets Dr. Madeline Swan, who is the daughter of White. Before he can explain anything, she quizzes him with some questions. After he reveals that he saw her father take his own life, she gets upset and tells him to go away, storming off outside the building. Unfortunately, she is soon taken by Hinks and his gang. Not one to back down, Bond hops on a plane and goes after the bad guys, leading to a wild chase that ends with their cars crashing. In the end, he saves Madeline but leaves Hinks as the only one still alive. Bond takes Madeline to see Q, who has looked into the ring they found. Q discovers that the ring holds important files showing that Bond's latest foes, including White, Chiara, Le Chiffre, Dominic Green, and Raul Silva, are all linked to a man named Oberhauser. He also finds out that groups like Quantum are actually part of this larger organization. Madeline reveals that this organization is called Spectre, and she clarifies that l'Americaine isn't a person like Bond thought, but actually a hotel located in Morocco. Meanwhile in London, M discovers that Bond has gone abroad, which goes against his instructions. On top of that, M has to handle C starting the Nine Eyes project, but for it to happen, everyone has to agree, and C has at least one person who disagrees with him. Additionally, the 00 program has been officially closed down. Meanwhile, Bond and Madeline head to Tangier, where they search for l'Americaine. While there, they uncover a collection of tapes and photographs that Mr. White had hidden, which point them to the next lead in their quest to find Spectre. The next day, Bond and Madeline get onto a train that's going to Spectre's secret base. While they're sitting together, Mr. Hinks shows up and interrupts them. A fight breaks out between Bond and the huge guy, and Madeline tries to help out by landing a punch. Bond cleverly wraps a chain around Hinks's neck and attaches it to a barrel, which pulls Hinks off the train by his neck. After that intense moment, Bond turns his attention to charming Madeline. They reach the Spectre base located in the desert. Oberhauser and his crew discover Bond and Madeline there, and Oberhauser claims he is the one responsible for all the terrible things that have happened to Bond over the past few years. He mentions the death of Vesper Lind and the last M. Then, he shows a video of Bond's final encounter with White, where Bond hands over the gun to White just before he dies. It also comes to light that C is working for Oberhauser, and the Nine Eyes program will allow Spectre to tap into all the intelligence sources. Suddenly, Bond gets knocked out by one of the henchmen. Bond finds himself waking up tied to a chair, ready to face some serious torture. Oberhauser starts telling Madeline about how his father took care of Bond after his parents died, almost like a brother to him, until he pretended to die in an avalanche. But now, he's not really Oberhauser anymore. He's actually Ernst Stavro Blofeld, which was a big surprise. Blofeld then activates some tiny drills that are aimed at Bond's head. In a brave moment, Madeline confesses her love for Bond. He secretly gives her his watch and sets the timer on it. Realizing what's about to happen, she quickly pushes the watch toward Blofeld just before it explodes, which also frees Bond from the chair. They manage to escape just as the whole place goes up in flames. Bond heads back to London to regroup with Tanner, Q, and Moneypenny. Madeline decides to leave Bond, unwilling to be part of his dangerous world. The team is going in the car when Hinks crashes his car with them, knocking down everyone inside. He then captures Bond. Bond is taken to the old MI6 building but quickly overpowers his captors. Inside, he confronts Blofeld, who now bears a scar and is blind in his right eye. Blofeld reveals that Madeline is somewhere in the building, which is rigged to explode. Meanwhile, M and the team work to track down C and prevent the Nine Eyes program from launching. M confronts C in his office and cleverly manipulates him into officially disabling the program. During their struggle, C tries to shoot M but ends up firing into the glass ceiling, losing his balance and plunging over the balcony to his death. Bond locates Madeline, and they make a daring escape through the Thames just as the building collapses behind them. Meanwhile, Blofeld is trying to flee in a helicopter, but Bond is quick to act and successfully shoots it down. After that, M captures Blofeld, while Bond drives away with Madeline. The movie wraps up with Bond getting another special car from Q to meet up with Madeline. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.